You won't believe what happened next. A superstar at the height of his powers picked up the phone one late night, dialed a number, and set off a chain of moments that fans still argue about. The caller was Prince. The voice on the other end? Chaka Khan, and the way their paths crossed would feed decades of stories about art, loyalty, obsession, and a mystery he never wanted fully explained. Back then, think peak Purple Rain era, Prince had turned his world into a fortress. Paisley Park was a dream palace and a bunker all at once. He didn't just avoid the spotlight between shows. He curved it, controlled it, hid inside it. So, when Chaka Khan later talked about a surprise call that sounded like a friend, and she even thought it might be Sly Stone. At first, you can imagine the shock when the voice said, essentially, "I'm in town. Come through!" She didn't swoon. She didn't play groupie. She actually dipped. And maybe that's exactly why Prince kept calling. Those calls became a ritual. Long, unpredictable, and strangely intimate. Not dating, not flirting, something else. Chaka Khan has always been clear. Whatever they had was spiritual, deeper than business, not romantic. And yet, there's no denying that the connection rewired both of their careers. She took his song, "I Feel For You," flipped it with a ferocious vocal, a harmonica blast, and a rap cameo that helped push hip-hop into mainstream pop radio. That record didn't just chart, it shifted the blueprint. And still, away from the boards and the microphones, the late-night conversations kept humming. Music, faith, fame. The cost of genius. You can hear it in the spaces between their collaborations, a bond that didn't need labels. Meanwhile, the world kept guessing. Prince wore lace, stilettos, eyeliner. He posed like a movie star and stared down the camera like a dare. He blurred every line people use to sort celebrities into neat boxes. When you refuse to explain yourself, people fill in the blanks for you, and that's exactly what happened. Record stores, backstage whispers, magazine columns everywhere you turned. Someone had a theory about who he loved and how he loved. The names most often in the crosshairs were the men around him. Some were bandmates, some were rivals, some were mentors, some were mirrors. Start with Andre Cymone, teen years friend. Early bandmate, roommate, co-architect of what we now call the Minneapolis sound. In lofts and basements, Prince and Andre Cymone built grooves like puzzle makers, snapping synths, drum machines, and bass into something the industry didn't have a word for yet. They wore matching fits, finished each other's musical sentences, and lived inside the same creative weather system. Then, the break. Fame tilted the floor. Credits got fuzzy. Egos got bruised. They split. Fans combed the photos, the interviews, the body language, and insisted there had to be more to it. Maybe, maybe not. What we know for sure is that the closeness was real, the music was undeniable, and the silence around it kept the rumors alive. Then there was Morris Day slick suits, mirror in hand, swagger for days. The time wasn't just a band, it was Prince playing chess with his own reflection. On stage, Prince and Morris Day bounced off each other like sparring partners in a comedy that sometimes felt like a seduction. Camp, funk, winked at innuendo. It was theater, yes, but theater can be personal. The tighter the routines got, the louder the whispers grew. Is this a bit, or is this a reveal? The truth is probably simpler. Two performers, both brilliant at tension, playing with the line between act and confession. Add Larry Graham to the timeline, the bass innovator who became Prince's spiritual North Star in a later chapter. When Prince shifted toward faith, friends say he leaned on Larry Graham hard. Daily calls. Advice on life, money, choices. To outsiders, it looked like devotion. To some, it looked like surrender. But if you've watched Prince long enough, you recognize the pattern. He was drawn to powerfully centered men, teachers, fathers, foils, who gave him something he couldn't manufacture alone. There were other gravity wells, George Clinton, cosmic funk overlord, patron saint of playful gender blurring, shared with Prince a belief that a man could strut in mascara and still shake a stadium. When they collaborated, it felt like two galaxies briefly overlapping. Tricky, the shape-shifting British auteur, crossed Prince's orbit in rumor and in studio lore. People talk about one charged session in London and a comment he once made, essentially praising Prince as the only man who could make softness look like strength. Whether that's hero worship or code, it shows the pattern again. Magnetism among rule breakers. And then you've got the names fans love to debate, because they come preloaded with rivalry or icon status. Michael Jackson loomed as a competitor and a mirror, another singular talent teaching the world to dance. Interviews and near collabs sparked headlines, and because Prince never handed out easy answers, people read tea leaves every time he stayed silent. With Billy Preston, the story's even foggier: shared circles, possible sessions, two keyboard geniuses who lived through similar industry storms. Sylvester and Little Richard get mentioned not because there's proof of anything romantic, but because they helped invent a lane where sequins, lipstick, and raw masculinity weren't contradictions. Jermaine Stewart floats in and out of those same conversations because he, too, played with the presentation dial and refused to apologize for it. Here's the part that matters. None of these theories, lists, or late-night forum essays were ever confirmed by Prince. Not one. Chaka Khan never named a secret roster of men and stamped it as fact. She respected boundaries. She's talked about being spiritually close to him and about how people melted around Prince's presence. But she also shut down romantic speculation about herself, flat out. That should tell us something. It tells us he created a force field around the most private parts of his life, and everyone else had to live with the not knowing. Still, the reason these stories won't die isn't just nosiness. It's because they say something true about how Prince moved through the world. He was consistently drawn to artists who didn't fit, men who wore the wrong clothes on purpose, men who blurred the edges of masculine and feminine and made the blur feel electric, men who led with big, difficult ideas. Whether those bonds were strictly creative, deeply spiritual, secretly romantic, or all of the above in different seasons, we can't say, and that's the point. The uncertainty is part of the design. Real talk. Would you have wanted Prince any other way? If he'd drawn you a map to his heart, would the music hit as hard? If he'd written press releases about every crush, would the shows still feel like secrets you got to keep? Part of his genius was refusing to let the world own him. Part of our job, even now, is to honor that refusal. So, here's where we land. The stories you've heard about lists, about secret lovers, about 8 names, make for juicy thumbnails. But the real story is messier, richer, and, honestly, more beautiful. Prince built a community of men and women who challenged him, steadied him, teased him, and sometimes broke with him. He didn't label those bonds for our convenience. He wrote them into songs. And then he left us to argue about it while the records kept spinning. If you've got your own theory, drop it in the comments, keep it respectful, keep it thoughtful. Which era tells you the most about who Prince was? Which collaboration changed how you hear him? And if this deep dive gave you something to think about, tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with the friend who still plays "I Feel For You" on repeat. The mystery isn't going anywhere, and honestly, that's exactly how Prince would have liked it.